Tell me a joke.
Why did the Scarecrow get promoted?
Why did the Scarecrow get promoted? No, I've no idea.
Because he was the standout in his field.
So you laughed.
Strap yourself in for Keeping It Real with Jac Ral.
Actually, perfect segue, you know. Success delusion. Have you heard of it? I bet you haven't.
No, I hadn't heard of it until... What does that mean? I bet you haven't.
Success
No,
delusion.
I had not heard of it until you suggested we talk about it.
Right.
Now I'm starting to get a bit paranoid.
Now
Why
you're a
did
bit
you-
worried. Well,
Anyway, what is
success
it? What
delusion.
is success delusion?
It's where we overestimate our contribution and take credit for successes that might not necessarily belong to us, yeah? So we have an elevated opinion of our skills, joke telling, and our standing among our peers. And we can ignore costly failures and exaggerate our impact on profits, on outcomes. These delusions are a direct result of success, not failure. So it's really interesting.
Okay, hang on. So it's a direct result of success. Okay.
Yeah. So the success delusion. Yeah.
So you only get so we're not talking about people think they're really successful and they're not.
Correct.
They've had success.
They are successful.
And then they become delusional about their success.
They do.
Rightio. Okay. This is going to be a good one to unpack.
This is a good one. And most people would not realise it's like blind spots that they don't have them, don't recognise they have blind spots. There'll be many people who have been very successful who don't realise they are deluded by their success or about their success.
Yeah. What are some famous people that have it, do you think?
Well, there tends to be a presidential election going on right as we speak. There's one person I could imagine that's got a bit of success delusion in that race.
True. So, and that would be a case because he has been relatively successful in what he's done.
The way he goes about it is interesting, but
anyway,
yes, true.
I reckon we need to unpack this more.
Okay. How does it happen? Yeah. So it's quite interesting. Well, any human, in fact, any animal, will repeat behaviour that's followed by positive reinforcement. It's like children, raising children, isn't it? You know?
Okay.
So positively reinforce good work, reward good work or good behaviour so that you get more of it.
Yeah.
So
it's like nearly
sense.
every podcast, your dog comes and taps you on the knee. So
he was tapping you on the knee before.
No, he was tapping me on the knee. So he give you a little scratch behind his ear.
That's right. He likes that positive reinforcement. So the more successful we become, the more positive reinforcement we get. Get it?
Right.
And so therefore the more likely we are to experience success delusion. So I behave this way, I'm successful, therefore I must be successful because I behave this way.
Okay.
Wrong.
So, okay. So is it because when you think about that, it was like, okay, so I'm doing something which is proving successful. So therefore I keep doing it, which means I have more success. So is it a case of it's a good thing at the start, like this almost like I'm seeing this almost upward spiral of success, but then reaches a point that if you're not aware of something,
if you're not challenging it and just making sure that you're not just continually getting positive reinforcement because you have gone to the top of the ladder. Right. So that's the difference here. So the higher up you move on that organisational ladder, the more our employees let us know how wonderful we are.
I was about to say, so it becomes almost a hierarchy.
Absolutely. It's reinforcement and validation and self sort of validation. Years ago when I worked at one of our major banks, one of the big four, the CEO at the time of the major bank I was at, I had the opportunity to have a chat to him and he said, Jac, by the time my leadership team talk to me and by the time I get the news about what's going on in this bank, it is brilliant. It is outstanding. It is so successful. He said, the only way I know what is going on around here is to actually have relationships 2, 3, 4, 5 layers down with people that I trust and that trust me so I can actually know what's going on. So he was very aware of success delusion.
Yeah. You see that play out so often, don't you, when there's been big corporate scandals.
Yes.
Or
Royal Banking Commission.
And then they're questioned and the CEO or the board.
I had no idea.
We had no idea.
Correct.
And like it's almost like how could you have not had any idea?
Well,
and the reality is they probably didn't because all the bad and they're finding that, the bad stuff gets filtered out.
Correct.
Before it gets to them.
Exactly right.
Which does make me think, how have they responded in the past to bad news that their people think that they need to filter that out?
Good point. So one of the reasons a lot of people lie is because the fear of consequence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you're raising kids and they tell you a lie and you hit the roof, you punish, which in some cases may well be valid, but there's a good chance they're not going to tell you again what you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
So be careful about
how you react.
And equally, we also have to be careful as the person who is being successful and the positive reinforcement we get, where that's coming from and how often it's coming from. I'll tell you a good story. So because our behaviour is often followed by positive reinforcement, even when this behaviour makes absolutely no sense. Listen to this.
Okay.
There was a very wise military leader, and he was at a dinner and he was sharing his learnings from years of experience with an eager, newly minted general. Yeah. Recently, have you started to notice that when you tell jokes, everyone erupts into laughter, and that when you say something wise, everyone nods their head in solemn agreement? The new general replied, "Why, yes, I have." The older general laughed and he continued, "Well, let me help you. You aren't that funny and you aren't that smart. It's only that star on your shoulder. Don't ever let it get to your head."
Oh, that is such a good story. I see that so often, and I think people underestimate the hierarchy.
Totally.
They think that I'm a good leader, I'm approachable, people like me.
Yep.
You're still the leader. You're still in a position of power. And I see this often, so I'll give you a couple of examples, but one, I was doing a storytelling workshop and one of the senior leaders, so he wasn't senior, he was like next level down from leadership team. And he said to me, when I share a story with my team, I'm telling the story and no one ever tells me to get to the point. But when I share the same story to my executive leadership team, people always say get to the point. And he looked at me dumbfounded going,
Who do I believe?
He was going, I don't understand why that happens. And I went, you seriously don't understand why that happens? He went, no.
Delusion.
And I went, because your team
is giving you positive reinforcement.
Your team's not going to say get to the point to you because you're their manager. But when you're going up the chain,
absolutely,
the power imbalance is the other way, and people are going to say get to the point.
Absolutely. And the point of that point is that if you report to somebody, then their power over you is incentive, yeah? So you could lose your job, you might not get your bonus, so you go along with it.
Yeah.
Whereas above you, that same incentive isn't there.
Exactly.
It's the other way around.
And I see this even when, CEOs are telling stories and they most of the time the CEOs I work with think they're really good storytellers.
Yeah.
And I hear them tell the story and they're shit. And I just go, oh my God,
CEOs.
it's like you are taking way too long. It's boring. And they think they're good because people are sitting there.
Well, they're giving them the positive reinforcement.
All of a sudden, their jokes are funny.
Yeah.
Like in that general story, your jokes aren't. You did not get any funnier. You just got more senior.
And that's a great line.
I like it.
Say that again.
You did not get any funnier. You just got more senior.
So true. So we all want to hear what we want to hear, yeah? We want to believe the great things the world is telling us about ourselves. This is this positive reinforcement. So our belief in ourselves helps us become more successful, but it can also make it very hard for us to change. Why would we – what's the saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
So if I'm successful and I keep getting feedback and positive reinforcement that I'm successful, why would I change?
So is that if you're getting positive reinforcement of how successful you are, and it must play into your confidence, and it must.
Of course.
So part of me is going, like, is that a good thing? Is there times when being delusional? We've spoken this about for the stories you tell yourself, and I tell myself delusional stories, right? Because they can serve you.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
They can be bad.
Yep.
But they can serve you.
So you're saying a positive story I tell myself, I can go and do this. I can do the public speaking. I've got this role even though I don't think I'm good enough yet. But those sort of positive stories can help us get to where we want to because it helps build our confidence. I agree. I think you're right. So there is a fine line here.
Yep.
I think the difference is that's you telling yourself that story. Not somebody else telling you that story.
Okay. Can I I've just thought of something then. The last few weeks, Steve and I have been watching a documentary, I think it's Netflix or whatever, it's called The Test. So we're both cricket
fanatics,
mad lovers. And the test is on when Australia went to England last year and played out for the Ashes test. And we actually went to
I was going to say, didn't you go to that?
We went to the third.
Rained out, weren't you, or something?
Yes, we hit the day that was rained out. But the story, it was the first test. And so Pat Cummins is a relatively new to the Australian captaincy.
This is
a
last
bowler,
year.
which is very unusual for a captain of a cricket team to be
Not
a bowler.
Ebola, the disease.
No. You're talking about bad jokes.
A bowler.
No, the bowler.
The bowler.
A bowler.
A bowler, not Ebola.
Anyway, it was the first test of the 5 test series. So pretty important to win, right? It was the 5th day, I think, the last session. So it's going on for 5 days. I won't tell everyone the rules of cricket, but Australia were 8 wickets down, so they've only got 2 wickets left. They needed like about 58 runs to win, and they're down. They're into the tail, which means it's only the bowlers that are batting. So
the bowlers, not Ebola, not a bowler.
And the documentary, because you've seen all the behind the scenes, all the players are going, we got no hope. We got no hope. And then Mitch Marsh, who was the 12th man runs out and gives them the drinks and stuff like that, if you see. And he runs out and he says to Pat Cummins, "Come on, Pat, you've got this. It's just another 50 partnership between you and Nathan." He goes, you and Nathan make 50 partnerships all the time. And Pat goes, "Yeah, you're right. This is just another 50-run partnership." And Mitch Marsh is running back to the pavilion thinking they've never made a 50-run partnership in their life, right? So Mitch Marsh has said
But he's told this to Pat Cummins.
But he's told this to Pat Cummins.
Believes it.
Pat Cummins believes it.
There's reinforcement.
You know what they do? Because they had the option
Don't
to
tell me
play
they
for a
won.
draw. They had the option to just – and you see this in the thing that he's starting to hit 4s and all the other players are going, oh, my God, they're going for it. They ended up winning.
That is awesome.
They made a 50 –
All because of Mitch Marsh saying to Pat Cummins, you can do this,
And
you've done it before.
And then in the documentary, they're interviewing Pat Cummins. He goes, "I didn't realise we'd never made a 50 partner." He goes, "I truly believed it." And so
that is awesome.
So that's
a positive story.
It's a positive success delusion, isn't it?
Well, no, it's not. See, this is where you're getting confused.
Okay,
so success delusion is the delusion you have personally about your success based on the positive reinforcement you get.
Yes, okay.
From others.
Yeah.
What you're telling is a great story in that Mitch Marsh has given Pat Cummins belief about winning and success based on past experience, which actually wasn't the case. But it didn't matter because the point was he wanted to build his confidence up to have a crack at it, and he did, and they won.
Yeah.
So it was actually great, but it is different to success delusion.
Okay. Yep.
So the point of success delusion is, again, that you get positive reinforcement, usually because you're in a leadership role or a position of power. People laugh at your jokes. People keep positively reinforcing that you are good, you are special, you are successful. You see no reason otherwise. So you continue to go on like you are without actually realising you're not that funny or you're not that smart or you're not that clever.
So how would you know? Like, how would people?
Yeah, great
I mean, you know,
question.
we use Trump as an example, but he would
refuse to believe.
And there'd be many people that go, no, he is really successful. So I mean, how would you know? How would you know?
I'll tell you. All of us have somebody that knows us very well that we know would tell us, my person is Richard.
Yeah.
You think you're funny. You think you're clever. You know.
You're not.
You think you're beautiful. After a few Wild Duck Creek Estate wines, you're all right, Jack.
Steve will sometimes remind me of that the morning after. He goes, "You weren't that funny." I'm trying to get you to go home for 2 hours.
Yeah, this is right. This is when you've been out for a night. Exactly right. So
is this when you think you're a really good dancer?
Sadly, I don't think Trump can use Melania to help him. I'm not sure that he's believing her, or that I think she's given up anyway. So, but
that is a great example. And putting all the politics aside, he's got people on his team that tell him how great he is, and the moment someone challenges him, they get fired.
Absolutely. So that's a perfect example of somebody who has
So
success delusion.
no one's challenging.
No. So how do you find out if you've got it? You actually make sure that you are having very open and honest conversations with people you trust to tell you if you're being a dickhead or if you're not that funny or you're not that smart or what you've just decided to do may not be right or could be better. So that's the first thing. So if we were to look at success delusion and talk about tips,
Yeah.
So because I think anyone listening to this, I know our keepers, they're bloody awesome. They're humble. They'll be going, God, do I have success delusion? Or they might be identifying it in other people, maybe people they report to or people they know. So for a start, you need to be very, very self-aware of the power dynamics between you and others, right?
Yep.
So if you're a leader, you've got people that report up to you. There is a really good reason for them to agree with you, positively reinforce you because there's a bonus involved, there's a job to be retained involved, there might be a promotion.
Yeah, and I think Australian leaders underestimate that power dynamics because,
I agree.
I think from a lot of countries in business, we're probably a bit more relaxed and casual, and there would be a lot of leaders going, no, I know. Look, I know I'm the manager, but we're all equal. It was like you're not.
No.
If people are reporting into you, there's a power imbalance.
Correct. Spot on. What's another tip, Ral? Success delusion.
Well, I think part of it is you sort of mentioned getting feedback from people that won't suffer consequences if you don't listen. So just asking your team for feedback, you're probably not going to get honest feedback. I mean, I would imagine, and Jac, you'd probably see this a lot, this was probably the reason that they introduced 360-degree feedback.
Correct.
So for those of you that don't know it, 360-degree feedback is you don't only get feedback from your manager, but from your peers and from the people that you work with. So the whole 360 degrees.
I run feedback surveys and I do them online. I use different tools and I do those for a number of my clients, very senior clients who say to me, it has to be anonymous, otherwise I won't get the real feedback.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. So 360 and getting feedback from people, again, that you trust. If you don't think they're going to tell you the truth, but you still need that feedback, then do it from an anonymous perspective or use somebody like me, an intermediary who doesn't need to tell, who can aggregate the feedback and make it not obvious.
Well, a lot of the work you do when you coach people is you speak to their boss or peers and get feedback to help them. So it is anonymous, but it's not someone just filling out a survey. And I think also too, we said, there's people in your world that whether it's your partner, whether it's your best mate, whether it's your kids. Yeah. It's just like
kids will tell you, that's for sure.
I've told you that story before I went to Harvard and said, what's the one thing you'd change about me? And Alex straight away said, admit when you're wrong.
And what did you say? What do you mean?
No, I said, I don't have a problem at all admitting when I'm wrong. And she goes, I rest my case.
I love Alex.
So, it's but it's genuine. But also too, when people have the courage to give you feedback, and it is courage and it's a gift. God, you've got to be really mindful how you take that on.
And
if you get
receive
defensive,
that feedback, well, you won't get it again.
You will never get it again.
You will not get it again. So power dynamics, be aware of those. Feedback, make sure that you are seeking feedback and from people you can trust. If it's feedback that you want to get from others and you're not sure that they're going to be honest, then do an anonymous or work through somebody like an executive coach. What about critical thinking?
Yeah, well, I was thinking that just like the topic we talked about last week on the 4 C's, but critical thinking is a good way to say, I think what you were saying before is like, if I've been successful because I'm doing this, therefore I'm doing this successful, and it may have worked, but is it still working for you? So, I mean, maybe there's a chance to put a critical thinking analysis over it to say, look, this has worked for me in the past, but could I be missing out on opportunities because I just have people blowing wind up my ass?
Absolutely. Yeah, and the answer to that would be yes, because there are many ways to achieve things and be successful. Also, a lot of people will agree to you or suggest that you're being successful when you're not. So that you'd want to watch for that.
Yeah,
so there's the tips: power dynamics, feedback, and critical thinking, particularly to encourage behavioural change.
And I think the other one we've sort of touched: be aware of that if all of a sudden people are agreeing with everything you say and laughing at your jokes, because as soon as you got that promotion, take that advice from the general: you're not that funny
and you're not that smart. Hey, I tell you, who is smart
and funny.
and who doesn't have success delusion?
Our mate Liam. I
Liam
reckon.
Anderson, winemaker at Wild Duck Creek Estate. One of the most humble people I think I've ever met.
Yeah,
talks
he is
about his
pretty cool.
very humble beginnings and
Yeah.
talks about his childhood and, inclusion, making sure that anyone who buys a bottle of wine becomes part of the family or becomes a member. It's not based on you having to spend thousands. They're good people at Wild Duck Creek Estate.
They are.
I love their brand. I really do. And I say that very sincerely. And there's such a great offer that you get if you're a keeper. So, there's no diluting success there. We're giving you access to success.
No, you drink enough of it, you might have success delusion.
That's okay. We'd still love you.
Yeah, so as usual, go to their website, go to the top right-hand corner, click on Keeping It Real, type in Keepers, and you get some pretty good deals on some pretty brilliant wine.
Correct.
So hopefully this has been of value. If it is, share it, like it, rate us, and we'll speak to you next week.
See ya.
You've been listening to another episode of Keeping It Real with Jac Ral. If you like what you've heard, don't forget to tell others about it and give a 5-star review. They may seem confident, but they really are sensitive 5-star needy souls. Yeah, right. Keeping It Real, created by Jack Phillips and Gabriel Dolan. Produced by Keelan Ferrari Brown. And this really real voiceover, spoken by Richard Phillips.